Welcome back to Zera Reviews, and this time it's the Chucky series. So once again, quick disclaimer at the beginning of this, if you have a different opinion of these films than I do, that's totally fine. This is just my personal takeaway. And also, please keep in mind there might be major or minor spoilers for these movies I'm going to talk about. I don't know. I wing these videos, so please keep that in mind. And now jumping right into Child's Play 1. Now, I had been watching the first of every major slasher franchise up until this point, and I was just going to then dive right into the sequels, but a friend recommended that I watch Child's Play as well, and I did. I am so glad that I did, because the Child's Play franchise is great. The first one is hilarious. I mean, there's some element of humor in a lot of these films, but when I watch Child's Play, it's just Chucky's a ride. He's got so much personality. It's great watching him, and honestly the effects were pretty good too. It's really impressive for '88 that the doll moving and everything like that looked as good as it did. I'm really impressed, but I guess that's what you get when you use practical effects instead of relying on CGI. Now, Child's Play 2 was also a good time. It was, a lot of people say it's like a rehash of the first one, but I didn't mind that. I actually kind of really enjoyed it. It's kind of, I'd put it on par with the first one. It also introduces a new character, Kyle, who becomes like an older sister type to Andy, which was really cute. It was a little bit more humor, I'd say, than the first one. Not a lot more, just a little bit more, which was nice. Definitely appreciated. Get to see more of Chucky being Chucky, which is what I love. It's more of the classic stuff that he does, which is fine with me. I don't mind, again, a rehash if it works. So, yeah, loved it. And Child's Play 3, I would honestly say, is the weakest in the series. I mean, they do continue the Andy Barclay story, but they get a new actor because they kind of jump pretty far ahead in the future. He's now 16 and going to military school, and I don't know why they decided that putting Chucky in a military school setting was a good idea. It was very weird. I mean, they explain how he gets there and everything like that, how everything goes on, but it still didn't seem really to fit. I mean, towards the end of the movie, he's at a carnival, and like, the whole movie should have been at a carnival or something like that. That fits him much better. And then I watched Bride of Chucky, and oh man, this is definitely one of my favorite in the series, and it is for a lot of other people, and I can see why. This is one of the series where they kind of definitely add a lot more humor to it, and also they introduce, finally, Tiffany, who is Chucky's girlfriend. And I was a little bit worried. I was wondering if she would just be kind of like a typical girlfriend role that a lot of these movies seem to have. But no, she was fully fleshed out, great character, a total riot, gives Chucky a run for his money sometimes. I mean, sometimes they're completely, totally compatible and in love, and other times they butt heads, and it's great to watch either scenario. This movie was great. It's definitely something that I know I liked a lot. When I kept going back to revisit a few scenes to rewatch. That's kind of my barometer for I know that I like a movie a lot when I keep going back to rewatch parts of it or even the whole thing over again. So loved it, loved it, loved it. Next one was Seed of Chucky, and this one I think is the most has the most mixed reviews. Some people love it, some people hate it. I mean, I'm sure there's people in the middle, but that's usually what you'll see. A lot of people try to ignore that this movie happened, I think. I guess I could see why. It's a little bit of a mess, but I still enjoyed it for the most part. It's definitely heavily focused on the humor. This one, out of all of them, has humor as the main focus, which I liked. But it does sort of break the fourth wall a bit with bringing in Jennifer Tilly, who plays Tiffany, as herself. But it's like, what? This fourth wall breaking? And of course their child, who they can't decide whether their child is a boy or a girl, and the weird ending where Chucky then finally decides he doesn't want to be a human, he wants to be a doll, and Tiffany's like, screw you, I do want to be human. It's weird, but it is funny. There are certain parts that I was roaring. There's a certain phone call scene where Jennifer Tilly's agent is on the line with Jennifer Tilly and Tiffany the doll, and the agent thinks that Jennifer is talking when it's really Tiffany. I was rolling during that scene. Rolling! It was so funny. And there's also a part or Tiffany is fighting the urge to kill somebody because she's like, I need to stop doing this. I'll treat it like it's an addiction. And so she starts reading up the things, the steps, like Alcoholics Anonymous. And so she treats it like it's an actual addiction. So she calls the hotline. She's just like, I'm about to have a relapse. And it's just like, it's so funny. It's one of those movies that you could just tell that they're having a good time with it. I mean, it might be out there and a little bit, maybe it's a little bit too much for some Chucky fans, but for me, I had a good time with it. I just didn't think the ending was quite right. It seemed a little, I don't know, the whole, I guess I find it bizarre because Tiffany at the end of Bride of Chucky was just like, maybe we shouldn't transfer our souls into these, human kids. We shouldn't do it. And then at the end of Seed, it's like Chucky says, no, we shouldn't do it. Now Tiffany's changed her mind. She's like, yes, we have to do it. I don't know. Just a bit weird. But that's a small gripe. It's not really a big deal. For the most part, I enjoyed the movie. It was good for a few really hearty laughs for me, and that's what I was looking for. So, most part, I had a good time with it. And then we finally get to the most recent films, which were kind of connected to each other. And Curse of Chucky really tries to bring back. Well, even not really bring back, because the first one wasn't even really that scary. It was just more so creepy. I could see how the first one would be terrifying to a child, though. I'm so glad I did not watch the Child's Play series as a child, because I probably would have been scared shitless by it. But, Curse of Chucky, they really try to amp up the scary factor. They don't just go for, oh, just creepy, anything like that. They really try to make it terrifying. And while it didn't fully work for me because I'm so desensitized to horror stuff these days, I could really appreciate the atmosphere they were building with this movie. It's one of those films, like in the first one, it takes a long time. I think it's like 50 minutes or even an hour in before we actually see Chucky speak and act like he normally is. I think it was the same thing for this movie. Like it took about 50 minutes to an hour in, something like that. I really appreciated it. They did a great job building the atmosphere, building the tension, and making it somehow work for a freaking, just a killer doll, you know what I mean? And also the fact that the actor who plays Chucky, Brad Dourif, I think is his name, his daughter stars in this one and then in the next one, and it's unbelievable how much she looks like him. It's crazy. She is, wow. Just wow. I will say my only complaint about Curse of Chucky, I had a pretty good time with it up until the backstory reveal of where he explains why he's doing this to this family that doesn't seem to have any connection to him. And I didn't mind the idea of, Charles Lee Ray having some connection to this family because he was a neighbor or something like that. That I didn't care about. It's fine. Whatever. But what I found weird was the whole thing about him being in love with, is that Nika's mom, and then her calling the cops on him is what caused him then to run out and have a shootout with the cops in the toy store afterwards, which is weird because wasn't he living with Tiffany at that point? I mean, like, she mentions in Bride of Chucky, Tiffany mentions that he left a ring on the mantelpiece the morning before he was killed. So they were obviously living together at that point, unless he was like trying to have a multiple family thing going on, or I don't know. It didn't seem to really fit the timeline. Yeah, I didn't really understand that. So I kind of just wrote that off and just kind of disregarded it and just went with everything else because everything else worked so well that I didn't want to let that spoil the whole movie for me. So I was just like, okay, aside from the timeline in this backstory not making sense, the rest of it was great. And so then I finally watched Cult of Chucky, and oh man, this one is bizarre. A bit of a mixed bag, kind of, maybe not kind of like Seed of Chucky, because this one's definitely trying to go for more serious stuff, but it definitely brings a little bit more of the humor back that Curse didn't have. Um, Overall, I did enjoy it. It gave me an ending I didn't expect. Major spoiler here, but Chucky wins in the end. I didn't expect that. Usually the slashers always lose. And I'm just like, wow, this is a franchise where the slasher actually won. And you know what? I was okay with that. I was actually okay with that. um, I don't know. Just break with convention, you know? And I love the fact that at the end of Curse and the end of this movie, they brought back the Child's Play actors. They brought back the actor who played Andy Barclay and who played Kyle from Part 2. Now, they had Andy actually in a bigger role than just being in an after credits scene in Cult, but I was a little bit disappointed because they kind of build up the fact that he might be, involved in the climax of the movie at some point, and he sort of is, but it's a little bit of a letdown because he has a small little fight with one of the Chuckies. There's multiple now. He shoots it dead, that's done, and then he's locked in a cell, and that's the end of it. It's just like, really? I mean, couldn't there have been a final showdown? Or at least, I mean, if you're going to take him out, at least have him go down in a blaze of glory trying to take the multiple Chuckies out. You're just going to have him lock in a cell. That's it? I mean, they had so much potential with bringing Andy back, because these two characters, both him and Chucky, have had so much history together that this would have been amazing to see, like a big showdown fight between these two. But one short little battle, and then him being locked away. That was my one big gripe. It's everything else, like I handled fine. I mean, there was some weird things here and there, but for the most part, I was just fine with it. This was the only major problem I had. It's like they were just doing a brief cameo thing. It's also like, oh yeah, this character's been here since the beginning. There he is again. That's it. Come on. Especially since, which amuses me, is that Andy's sort of taking on 2018 Laurie Strode thing with the lots of guns and being prepared, everything like that. Come on! Ugh. The potential that was lost there. But I love the fact that they did bring Kyle back in the post-credits scene. Maybe she found a way to get Andy out of the asylum. I don't know. Wow, that was yeah. Cult was a little bit of a mess, but I did appreciate it. I did like it. It was fun. I did have the concern that they were going to try and go for the angle that all this was happening in Nika's mind, that Chucky really wasn't real or anything like that. So glad they didn't do that. I was a little bit worried for a little bit there. Thankfully, they did not. And that's about it for the Chucky series. I am definitely looking forward to the reboot that's happening later this year. I plan to see that in theaters. I actually bought a Good Guys t-shirt recently, and I plan to wear it when I go to the movies. I am so psyched for that. I can't wait when the trailers come out for it. But yeah, that's about my thoughts on the Chucky series. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. It will be a little bit of time before I get to my next franchise, because I haven't tackled the next one yet, and it's going to be one where I plan to watch all of them, so please bear that in mind. It's probably going to be like, I don't know, a few weeks, month or two from now. I don't know exactly how long. Sometimes I get through these movies really fast, and other times it takes me a while. I don't know. We'll see. Either way, thank you guys for watching, and see you later.